Please. Yeah, John.
On the hurricane, is there any consideration being given to mobilizing a Department of Defense task force to the Bahamas in a similar fashion to the one that was mobilized to Haiti after the earthquake?
Yeah, well, we are. In fact, the Coast Guard is over there in a very big way now. I think we have almost 8 helicopters, between 6 and 8. We'll have 8 there very shortly. It's a tremendous tragedy. It's so far, I mean, they found some pretty bad things, as you probably have heard, but the numbers are still, if you look at that, the numbers are still much smaller than anybody would have believed. But we're at the request of the government, and even without the request, but the government has requested, the government of the Bahamas, and we are over there in a very big way with the Coast Guard. We'll also be sending quite a few more people. We also have to watch, though, what's happening with Georgia and South Carolina, North Carolina. It's on its way up, so we have to see where it hits, how it hits. We got very, very lucky in Florida, as you know, John. We talked about that a little while ago. Florida was going to take a direct hit, go right through into the Gulf, and really that would have been tragedy, and it made that right turn that a lot of people didn't expect. Very few people expected that to happen. And not only a right, it stayed fairly far away. So Florida's in great shape, and now we're going to go through some tremendous states, and we're going to see how they do. But so far, it's staying away. We think it could come on in South Carolina, come very much more onshore. We'll see what happens. But so we have to keep our guard up. We're watching that, but we're also very much helping the government of the Bahamas.
The size of the military response, Secretary
They're putting it all, yeah.
Secretary Esper was talking about clearing runways.
Right. He's doing that now, and we're doing that now. The runways were, mostly topical. The runways weren't badly hurt, other than tremendous debris, as you saw. So we're clearing runways. We're having a lot of food brought in. We're taking some of the. We were very well set up in Puerto Rico, and we didn't have to worry about it because, fortunately, I missed Puerto Rico. But we're taking some of the supplies from other places, including Florida, where we didn't have to use them, and we're going to be bringing them over to the Bahamas, where they really need it very badly, because that was a very hard hit. Yes?
President, you showed us the map earlier, the initial forecast.
Yeah.
So it appeared to have been, edited or something to include Alabama. Can you explain how that change was made?
No, I just know, yeah. I know that Alabama was in the original forecast. They thought it would get it as a piece of it. It was supposed to go, actually, we have a better map than that, which is going to be presented, where we had many lines going directly, many models, each line being a model, and they were going directly through. And in all cases, Alabama was hit, if not lightly, in some cases pretty hard. Georgia, Alabama was a different route. They actually gave that a 95% chance probability. It turned out that that was not what happened. It made the right turn up the coast. But Alabama was hit very hard, and was going to be hit very hard along with Georgia. But under the current, they won't be. Georgia will be, possibly. We're going to see. We're right at that point right now. But I think Georgia's going to be in great shape. Everyone's going to be in great shape because we're going to take care of it regardless. But the original path was through Florida. That was probably 3 days. I think that's probably 3-4 days old. The original path that most people thought it was going to be taken, as you know, was right through Florida, where on the right would have been Georgia, Alabama, etc.
And that map that you showed us today looked like it almost had like a Sharpie.
I don't know. Yes.
Walmart is discontinuing sale of certain ammo after the recent shootings. Do you think they're making a smart decision?
That's up to Walmart. Hey, they're very smart. They had a tremendous quarter. They just announced tremendous numbers, which tells you how well our country is doing. That's sort of like the ultimate poll. But Walmart announced numbers that were shockingly good. I'm very proud of them from that standpoint. From the standpoint of what they're doing with ammunition and guns, you'd have to talk to them. That's up to them.
Can help deter future shootings, or at least the damage from?
Well, I don't know. They feel that what they did is the right thing, and they can do what they have to do. We're working with Congress, I can tell you. A lot of people are working on different scenarios, and we're going to see how it all comes about and what happens. But Walmart, they did what they did. What I'm happy about Walmart is they announced such great numbers. It shows how well our economy is doing very well. China wants very much to make a deal. We'll see. They had the worst year in over 50. You know, they had a year that was a disaster for them. Millions of jobs have been lost. Their supply chain has been destroyed or soon to be destroyed. I don't think they can continue onward like that. But let's see whether or not they want to make a deal. I can tell you they want to make it. Let's see if they can get to the table.
Mr. President, in terms of what's coming together in these talks with Congress in the wake of Odessa and El Paso and Dayton and myriad other shootings, what kind of direction is that heading in now in terms of background checks, in terms of mental health?
Right. Well, a lot of people are coming back, as you know, John. A lot of people are coming back, and they're back in many cases. And there's tremendous talk going on as to exactly the subject you're talking about. Many different concepts and many different things, including mental health, which is, to me, a very important element of it. And we'll be having, well, I already have. I mean, I've been having a lot of phone discussions and some meetings with different people in the Senate and in House of Representatives, and we'll be making some pretty good determinations pretty soon. We're in touch with a lot of different people. There are many proposals put forward. I heard 29 different proposals. So there's no lack of proposal. We'll have to see what happens. I support safety for our citizens. I support keeping guns out of the hands of sick people, mentally ill people. And I also support something having to do with mental illness. We have to get these people off the streets. And I was saying very strongly when I was young, we had mental institutions in New York. And the governor and governors closed most of them. And those people are on the street, other than a few of the institutions for people that have very, very severe, unbelievably severe mental illness. They closed so many of those institutions. That happened to a lot of other places, and they closed them for cost reasons. It was during not great times, and they closed them for cost reasons. And I think that it's a big problem, and we have to have, at least to a certain extent, some of those institutions have to be in a new form opened up. Okay?
If it took closing some of the loopholes in background checks and maybe even extending the waiting period, would you support that?
Well, we're going to take a look. That's a proposal, certainly by some. We're going to be looking at a lot of things and hopefully coming up with something that's bipartisan. It has to be bipartisan. But hopefully we'll come up with something that's bipartisan. And I will say this, if you look at background checks and if you look at some of even the more severe and comprehensive ideas that are being put forward, it wouldn't have stopped any of the last few years' worth of these mass shootings, which is a problem. You look back and you look back at them, and you could go back 15 or 20 years, and many of them wouldn't have been stopped by the kind of things. And some of them are pretty severe. Wouldn't have stopped very much of it. With that being said, we're looking at some things that are very strong, and we have to do it in a bipartisan way, and we're going to see what happens, John. We're going to see what happens. Hopefully something good will come out of it. We will know fairly soon. Again, a lot of talks going on, a lot of people coming back, and it's going to be very interesting. But people want to come to a solution if we can.
Mr. President, so are you saying the time is now, sir, for something that happened with guns? As you're saying, there's a lot
I would like
of
to see, yes, I would like to see, April, something happen. I'd like to see it happen soon. We've put together a task force at the White House with a lot of good people, a lot of good, talented people, a lot of people that really understand both sides of the issue. You know, you have two sides to this issue, and they're coming to somewhat of a conclusion. Now they're meeting with the Senate, they're meeting with the House, and we'll see if something can happen. But we would certainly like to see that happen. Yes.
Will you get backlash from the NRA, sir?
Maybe. It's
You
all
don't
right.
mind
We
that?
have to do what's right. No, we're going to do what's right. I respect the NRA greatly. They were very nice to me. They supported me, and I have great respect for them. They love our country. But we're going to do what's right. And you know what? The NRA wants to do what's right, too. I really believe that. I think the NRA wants to do what's right. I hope so. Please.
Mr. President, can you speak to your involvement in the Vice President's plans to stay at a Trump property in Ireland?
Well, I had no involvement other than it's a great place. It's Doonbeg. I own it. It's in Ireland. It's beautiful. It's wonderful. And he had his family lives there, which is really amazing. Mike, his family has lived there for many decades. In fact, one of the first things he said to me is that he knew I had this terrific place in Doonbeg in Ireland, and he said to me, you know, my family lives in Doonbeg, meaning in that area, that certain area it's a beautiful area in Ireland. But from what I understood, he was going there. Then I heard he was going there, but I didn't. It wasn't my idea for Mike to go there. Mike went there because his family's there. That's my understanding of it.
You didn't suggest that he...
No, I didn't. I don't suggest anything. I don't suggest it, nor did I with the Attorney General. I never spoke to the Attorney General about using my hotel. I have a lot of hotels all over the place, and people use them because they're the best. I mean, they're the best. And I know the Attorney General is using them, as I read in the paper. To this day, I haven't spoken to him about it. But he's using the hotel. And people like my product, what can I tell you? Can't help it. But, and I guess they say we want to stay at a place that's better than someplace else. But with Mike Pence, we never spoke about it. And with Bill, I never spoke about it. Attorney General Barr, we never spoke about it. But that's what they choose. Yes?
Sir, on Afghanistan, are you ready to sign a peace deal with the Taliban anytime soon?
Well, we'll see. We're going to be talking to them. We're continuing to talk. We've been there 19 years. We've done tremendous work. We could win it very quickly. I've said this many times, if I'm willing to kill 10 million people in the course of a week or two, we could win that thing very quickly. I'm not looking to kill people in that case or in any other case, frankly. We could win that very quickly. It has not been easy for our country because we're really serving as policemen more than we are anything else. We're like policemen in Afghanistan. But we're talking to the Taliban. We're talking to the government. We'll see if we can do something. It's been a long time. We have great warriors there. We have great soldiers, but they're not acting as soldiers. They're acting as policemen. And that's not their job. That's not their job. So we'd like to get at least a big proportion of them home. We also have NATO troops there. We'd like to bring a big portion of them home. So we're talking to the Taliban. We're talking to the government. We'll see what happens. We're also talking to Iran. And we're also talking to North Korea. Look, when I took over, I was given a lot of bad hands by previous administrations. And I say that as plural. Previous administrations. I was given a lot of things. I was given North Korea, whereas, President Obama said that's going to be the hardest problem. And he said some very tough things about North Korea, that he thought it was going to be a problem that hasn't turned out to be that kind of a problem. But who knows, again, I always say, who knows what's going to happen. But the relationship is good. We'll see what happens. But you look at Iran, that was a disaster. They were going to have a nuclear weapon fairly shortly because, the agreement that was signed with John Kerry and President Obama, that agreement was expiring in a very short period of time. You can't do an agreement for a short period of time. Pay $150 billion, $1.8 billion in cash, and you have in cash. And you just can't do that. So they paid $150 million. 150, think of that. And how could you possibly do a thing like that? They paid all of that money in cash. All of that, but it was plane loads of money in cash, and you can't do it. So they made a deal that was a crazy deal. And what people don't understand, the deal was it's getting ready to expire in a very short number of years. So we're going to see what happens. But Iran is not the same country it was. And not at all. Not at all. But take a look at the kind of money you're talking about, where you have that kind of money. And look what we got for it. We got nothing. We got nothing. All of that money, and we got nothing. And all of those lives. So I think that Iran wants to talk very strongly, and I think that a lot of people want to talk. I tell you, China wants to talk. China wants to talk. So we have a lot of good things going. Anything else?
Mr. President, on Afghanistan, is there any scenario in which the Taliban does not regain control of Afghanistan?
Well, I don't want to talk about it from that standpoint, John. We're going to see what happens. We're looking to draw down our troops. We've been there 19 years almost, and that's a long time. And they fought, and at certain points could have won if we wanted to win. But a lot of times we go in not to win. We go in as almost police forces. But you look at that, and you look at other things we're involved in with, as an example, Iran, where you make a payment like you made and you end up with nothing. We do things that are things that I disagree with, and I guess that's probably why I'm here and somebody else isn't here. And we're making progress on all of it. And by the way, the economy is doing very well. But even if the economy didn't do well, as an example, with China, I'd have to do the China thing anyway, even if the economy, because it was time. It was time. You know, the United States cannot continue to lose $500 billion a year. This has gone on for many, many years. And it was time. Somebody should have done something. President Obama should have. President Bush should have. President Clinton should have. Both Bushes. But they decided not to. They left it to me.
If the Taliban were to regain control in Afghanistan, would that take us back to exactly where we were pre-9/11?
I think that will be much different. I think that having gone in, I was not a fan of going into the Middle East. I think it was a bad decision. I don't think now it's been proven. It's been a bad. Going into Iraq was an incredibly bad decision. That's my opinion. I've said it for a long time.
Going into Afghanistan?
It was not as bad, but it could have been handled a lot differently. I think time has proven that, but it could have been handled a lot differently. But we're in very major discussions. They may or may not happen. You know, there's no guarantee that they're going to happen. We're dealing with the government also. If you watched a show called 60 Minutes from about 2 years ago, I remember exactly what was said by your leader of the government, that if the United States wasn't there, he'd be there for a very short period of time. He wouldn't be able to sustain himself. That's not a good situation either. We have to stay there in order for them to sustain themselves. Well, eventually we have to get out. So why is he saying that? And that was that really made a point. That was 2 years ago, maybe even a little bit longer. But I watched that statement and I said, wow, that tells you something. That tells you something. But that's not a good situation. So that's basically the story. We have a lot of things going that are very good. Economy is doing great, but whether it did or not, the things we're doing are much more important. And in particular, if you look at Iran, how that's going, I think it's going fine. I think it's going good. I tell you, they want to talk. They're in a much different position than they were 2.5, almost 3 years ago when I came into office. They were the number 1 source of terror in the world, and even the money that they're giving to terror organizations is way down because they don't have so much money. All of those billions of dollars given by the previous administration, that money's been long spent. It's long gone. And they want to see if they can do something, because Iran can be a great country and North Korea can be a great country. They can be great. We're not looking for regime change. We've learned that lesson a long time ago. They can be great countries. We'll see what happens. But there's a lot of talking going on right now, and I think a lot of it's going to be, and maybe all of it's going to happen in some very important deals. Yes, go ahead, April.
Mr. President, back on China. Before you even became president, the relationship with this nation and China was complicated. And now tensions have escalated with the war of words.
I don't think it's complicated, April. I think it's very simple. We can't be ripped off by China anymore. You know, I think he understands it. I actually think our relationship now is much less complicated than it was previous to me when they were ripping off our country.
So here's the question. Are you concerned with the back and forth, with the war of words, with China, that they could possibly one day call our debt due and it can destabilize our economy? Have you ever thought about
I'm not worried about it at all. They have approximately $1 trillion. That's a trickle compared to what we do, and plus interest rates are very low. We've never been in a position where we've had more people wanting to invest in our bonds. Never. We're setting records. Interest rates are so low. It's the lowest interest rate we've ever paid. I mean, we're paying a number that we haven't paid. I don't believe we've ever paid it this low. We have some refinancings that are coming due soon, and they're going to be so oversubscribed like you've never seen before. So if somebody wanted to get their debt, you know, first of all, their debt has to come due. You know, when their debt comes due, if they didn't want to renew or re-up, as they say on Wall Street, that would be fine with us because we can refinance that very easily. There's never been a time where more money has come into our country. People want it for security. They want it for safety. They want it for a little interest, very little interest. But they want the security and the safety. And we'll have no trouble. There's nothing anybody's going to be doing We're in a very strong position, really strong position, probably in terms of refinancing, the strongest position we've ever been in. Okay? Thank you, April. Okay, John,
The
thank
only
you.
thing that I would think of, sir, along those lines is if China decided to close down the South China Sea, what could the United States do about it? Because there are enough missiles there to do serious damage to the 7th.
Well, yeah, I know, John. I don't want to talk about that. Look, we have a lot of very strong allies, and we're doing a lot of allies very big favors by even being over there. We're spending a lot of money to help Japan. We're spending a lot of money to help South Korea, the Philippines. We spend a lot of money to help a lot of people. And in many cases, in some cases, but many cases, these people don't do so much for us. And but we're helping a lot of people throughout the world that have never appreciated it. We've never had a leader that demanded that they appreciate it. I'm saying you have to appreciate it. But I think it's a hypothetical. I think it's highly unlikely. But if something would happen, you'll be the first to know. Okay? Thank you, John. Thank you, everybody. Thank you very much. Thank you.